Okay, how's everybody doing today? Today's a really important video that I'm going to be doing. And this video is going to be based on what I used to call the attitudes and responsibilities, but in general, I call them spiritual principles. Maybe they're virtues. They are to me the framework, the structure, and foundation of what I feel all who are involved in spirituality should embody, should have integrated, should understand. And we're going to go through these, and I'm going to kind of go through each one and explain what they are and how they apply to our lives. But essentially, a good set of, it can be any set, as long as it's your set, of spiritual principles that you live your life by. And these are principles that essentially can help you to learn how to make choices in any situation. If you've truly studied and actually embodied and are actually being these principles and living them, you will be just fine in any spirituality, and you will go very far. I find a lot of people, unless they've actually been in a spiritual group where they're, having some form of virtues or principles taught to them in regards to how to live your life, how to make choices, what to do in certain situations, so that you can stay in alignment with your God self or with Source, is so critical. It's so much stronger than just meditating for 30 minutes a day, for 3 minutes a day, because in integrating these spiritual principles, you are bypassing a lot of kind of busy work, and you are literally becoming these impeccable principles, or these eternal principles that are going to be the foundation and the fiber of your eternal being, or your beingness, or your consciousness. So when I was in a spiritual group, they were called attitudes and responsibilities, but we did so many things in this group. I mean, we had tons of techniques, journeys, spiritual self-healing techniques, meditations, and all were valid and valuable. But the strongest things that I kind of learned from my previous life in that group, and I still use to this day, are the principles that we had called the attitudes and responsibilities. To give you an idea, I'm going to list a couple. So for example, these principles could be love, grace, gratitude, reverent respect, responsibility, trust, accountability, impeccability, mindfulness, fearlessness, engaged detachment, and joy. So, we're going to get into these because I'm not really seeing a lot of things online, or I don't know about religions or groups, but I'm just not seeing a core set of values that are situated in higher vibrations, are situated on a level of unconditional love, or higher in vibration or frequency, that a person can simply learn and practice on a day-to-day basis. Because any problem in life, I found I can trace that problem back to how I made the choice, what was going on with me, and seeing, okay, was I in alignment when I made this choice with Source and my preference to be in alignment with Source? Or did I kind of fall off when I made the choice? Or was I giving energy to lower vibrations or to other potential beings? Was I really standing in my power? And I've always found in self-reflection and just moving forward, I can apply these principles to any situation today. And I feel like I can give you clear, sound answers that would be, what people would consider to be the right answer, the right choice, or the right action. And that's what these principles do. They allow you to understand how to make choices in the best way. And what do you base how you make your choices on? Is it just your intuition? Well, one of these principles that I've studied is called sense. And for each principle, there's kind of like a couple sentences to explain what it is. But essentially, the principle of sense is being able to use your common sense or physical 3D sense in regards to things in your life, but also incorporating your spiritual sense and knowing how to use both, knowing how to be in a balance with those, and not just just operating off of one where you're all spiritual sense and no common sense. So, and this is a great example of when it comes to making choices. You want to sometimes figure things out. You might want to take some time to sit back and get a feeling of, okay, how do I feel about this? And just kind of go within real quick. Just kind of, put yourself in that meditative state, or even go into a meditation if you really want to get an answer to a question on something, or just get an idea of, do I really want to do this job, or do I want to do this? You might want to incorporate that kind of sound response from your spiritual self. So these principles are so important. I have always felt like our universe, which to me, everything is made of source and ether, but in its foundation, everything is made as love. Everything is a form of love in vibration, consciousness, or energy. It has to be, because that's what source is love, and nothing can go outside of source. You can have beings that deter consciously from love, but the God spark particles that attribute to their conscious awareness comes directly from source, and that's all love. So whether they want to engage in the idea of love or not, they are still a vibration of a love frequency in order to even exist. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read this directly from my old book. And so this would be from Keylontic Science, taught by Ashayana Dean. And these were some of the core things that came out in regards to this spiritual work a long time ago. I'm thinking probably back 2000, maybe 2001. And this is what it says. It's called The Attitudes and Responsibilities of Mastery. Part of the process of spiritual integration of our higher selves, or expansion of our consciousness, involves reprogramming the way we think. Our thoughts create our reality and the life experience we have on the inside and the outside of us. The following attitudes and responsibilities, when embodied and lived, will help to change our thought patterns, thoughts that we simply take for granted because they are part of the programming we currently carry. Changing the thought patterns is actually changing the programming in the personal shields. Or, in my words, it'll change your energetic structure in being able to integrate these high vibratory frequencies of these principles and virtues that I'm speaking on. So I want to talk a little bit about why this is so important to have a foundation of. Ever since we're born, we are walked into a world where we take on programming that, for one who's coming into spirituality or that you would consider to be awakened, tends to operate counter productive or counterintuitive to what a person who's trying to really connect with their soul within themselves or connect with their eternal self. They have to kind of shed this programming. They have to reprogram their minds to operate in an extremely higher dimensional and higher frequency capacity, which will allow you to be extremely connected and in tune, and all of your extrasensory perceptions activated. So, I mean, this is how a more or a higher evolved human would operate, with a mental aligned set of programs that you program yourself in regards to how you want your thoughts to operate, how you want to think. And a big part of the work I did for myself was doing what I call mental reprogramming, which was a big part for a couple of years. Just in the beginning of kind of my spiritual journey, I would start with self-awareness, which is actually one of the principles, self-awareness. Starting to become aware of my inner self, my conscious thoughts. Taking time to notice if I have a thought, is this thought creating a positive feeling in me? Or is it creating a negative feeling? Or do I have a response pattern that's negative when I hear this thought, or whenever I engage this thought? So you're gonna come to find out that not all of your thoughts are actually really coming from you. And I'll have to explain that. But it has to do with kind of high-level metaphysics. But in a unified source field, and as well as being a part of a collective consciousness, the collective mental energy, depending on where the collective is at with things, can affect. So as I was saying, because we're in a collective of consciousness, we are part of the collective consciousness on this planet. The way we are set up energetically is that, we can easily pick up on energies and thoughts, or thought forms, or thought energies that come from the collective, come from people you sit next to, come from people you interact with. It just depends on how your energetic fields operate and how many openings you have and things like that. So it's really easy to, when you practice self-awareness as you're just going about your day, when you can start to notice a negative thought. Now, this would be a thought that is typically a judgment, even if you're the one creating it, but it would be a judgment typically of another person, something outside of you, or even a judgment of your own self typically, where you get this thought like, oh, that was stupid. And then after you hear that, you start to get down on yourself as a response to that thought. Well, in that situation, that's a perfect example where you might want to just stop, acknowledge what just happened, and if you're able to catch all that, take a breath, take as much time as you want to take to kind of try to figure out what just happened. Once you're able to isolate a negative thought that you don't want to have in your mental mind, because it serves no purpose, you want to just kind of maybe inhale, let that thought go. Always allow it to come up and leave. Allow it to express, or allow it to, from a point of you acknowledging it, so that you can then release it. And then with your own choice of how you want to repattern that thought, I typically would take basically the virtues, or one of the attitudes and responsibilities which reflects the opposite of that thought. So if you have like a judgmental thought saying you're stupid, I would say, okay, I would inhale, acknowledge the thought, release the negative thought, and then reprogram myself with an I am statement. It's very powerful. These reprogram. Okay, so what you're gonna find out is when you're at this stage of becoming aware of your thoughts and kind of doing this kind of mental reprogramming exercise, you're essentially going to be clearing out all negative thoughts, all thoughts and thought forms that do not serve you are going to be cleared. And then you're going to usually want to put the proper thought in place of that, whatever was lacking with that thought, in regards to yourself. So for example, as I was saying, when you catch a negative thought, you want to acknowledge it, release it, but then typically put some type of, make an I am statement so that you can then code the proper thought. That's an eternal principle, that whatever the negative thought was missing. So when you do that, those thought forms get coded into your neuronal structure. And it's actually somewhat of like a form of neurogenesis, I think. But anytime, and again, as I was saying, your thought forms are incredibly powerful. This is how we create. This is how we manifest. We manifest from our thoughts. And I'll be having a video that talks more about what a thought actually is and how much power is behind a thought. But you want to be careful with how you think about yourself. Because when you start to think in terms of I am, you are basically making a statement about you. And that's going to be programmed into your neurons and saved indefinitely until you reprogram it. So as you become more self-aware and conscious of your thoughts, you will change the way you think. Things won't just run on automatic like a lot of people might have. And you will find, if you do this mental reprogramming, that your mind becomes clear, crisp. And this reprogramming works as you kind of work your spiritual path. So again, let's say you get a negative thought that says, that was stupid, or I am stupid. Well, go through the process of acknowledging it, releasing it, and then put the proper thought form in place of that so that it gets fully cleared out. So if you're making a judgment of yourself, thinking that you're stupid, you might want to say, I love myself. There's a lack of self-love there. Or you could say, I'm really smart. Whatever positive thought form matches the negative thought is how you can reprogram yourself. And it happens quickly, and it's not like this arduous type of activity where you're constantly talking to yourself. No, it's just every once in a while you'll start to catch little things, and you'll notice when you do this reprogramming, whatever way you want to do it, it works. And you're not going to have those kind of thoughts coming in the way they were coming in before. There's a whole metaphysical process to how thought forms interact with our energetic auras, our mental bodies, our minds, and I can go into that later. But this is just the biggest part. So a big part of like ascension and growing and evolving and being able to utilize your full 12 strands of DNA, to utilize the full capacity of your brain, is to have it running in its most optimal form. And that begins with management and being able to master your ego and your whole mind. And it takes time. You're not going to do it in a day. And it's not just it's not maybe always done just by meditating. You have to do some proactive efforts here. There's a lot of different techniques for doing mental reprogramming. But if you're in the beginner phases of spirituality, or if you haven't already done this, they do have techniques out there that work on like basically clearing negative thought forms out of your template. So on a mass level, and then running energy through your template, and then, sealing it with a higher frequency so that those thought forms get cleared out, whatever way you want to do it. But I recommend trying just self-awareness, one of the principles, catching where a negative thought might come up. Is this thought serving me, or does it do absolutely nothing for me? And if you don't need it, release it, reprogram, typically with an I am statement or whatever you feel comfortable doing. You may not even need to say anything. And just let that expression of your mind, as well as how it's connected to your emotions, leave your mind forever. You'll start to notice that you will create a positive, peaceful state of mind with less monkey mind, with less chatter, with less self-judgment. Anything that's, of a judgment of yourself, you just don't need, unless it's an analytical assessment, which is quite different. But this is what I think most to all spiritual individuals do. And I did this for a long time. I would be aware of it, and I would like to go deep into it. I would want to know if I had a negative thought come up. I'd want to know, well, why did I think that? Where did that come from? I would go into it. I'd figure out what distortion is that connected to inside of me that has me thinking of myself like that. And I would heal myself by doing this process. But essentially what these principles, any set of good principles that helps you to make choices that really run on a strong frequency, is going to really do wonders for your life, your joy, your happiness, your mind, your state of being. And that's what these attitudes and responsibilities do. They basically reprogram where you had negative programmatic thoughts with appropriate, I'd like to say eternal thought forms or eternal alignments of high frequency codes and fibers of source with the principles that you choose to live your life by. Another good example is, let's say something happens and you get kind of triggered, like someone does something and you get angry and you're like, I can't believe this. So as you're expressing that anger, now you might be on autopilot with it. You may not have even caught that you've already went from mellow to very kind of below. You've lowered your vibrations by engaging in anger. When and if you can be conscious of it, if you're able to control and master your emotions and thoughts, nothing's going to upset you unless it just is a natural response, which is typically coming from your soul, if you can't control it. But there's a certain point where a natural fear and a natural anger that is there for your safety, like if a car almost hits you and the fear comes up before it comes by, that's natural. And reprogramming the mental body, it goes the same with fears. Fears are running on a reversed or negative thought form or thought pattern or kind of form of energy. So if you start to notice fears coming up, they may not even be in thought form yet. It could just be what you're feeling and you know why. Go in and reprogram that so you can create a process that will help you to transmute fears. And one of the ways I used to do it is I would be very aware of when fears would come up. And then I would notice, how do I respond to these fears? And do I go into a program where I'm just operating with the same response over and over to the same fear, but it never going anywhere, it never getting healed, and you're basically just giving negative energy away and your own energy away when you engage fear and in negative thought forms. So if you catch yourself with a fear, just take a second to check in with yourself, see why you're feeling that, and then try to clear it, acknowledge it, release it, and then reprogram it, or do it whatever way you feel is best. You'll start to take leaps and bounds with your life when you can sit, and it's best to have like a piece of paper of a set of principles of how you want to live your life, knowing that if I really am honest with myself and I stick to living my life and making choices like this, it's going to create all the things that I want to create in my life, which is going to involve joy, happiness, and many other things. Not to mention, there is actually a science behind these energies. And quantum physics nails it. I mean, it's like the law of cause and effect. What people call that karma, I don't want to call it that, but cause and effect is very real. So every action, even every thought, anything that you apply your energy to will have some type of consequence. So you'll either have a positive, reciprocal reaction or consequence to whatever you just did, or you're going to end up creating a negative one. So this is where you want to make sure that you want to stay in alignment with things, because in moments where you are able to shift and change the way that you normally would make a choice, you are doing such a service to yourself. It's like taking leaps and bounds, years of psychological therapy, all in just one moment of shifting out of a pattern that you might have. And that's also something you might want to check on, is where do I have patterns in my life? Where am I just operating because that's what I was taught to do, or that's what I'm used to doing? You know, if someone says something, you start yelling immediately. It's like, well, do I really need to yell right now? Or is that something that just worked for something in the past? And this is you taking control of yourself. This is self-mastery. And it begins with self-awareness and committing yourself, but nothing where you're making it hard and you're having problems doing it, but commit yourself to living by a set of good principles. It also does a massive service to the whole planet and the entire collective. Every time you make a choice that's based in love, or you're healing something, it has an exponential effect on everyone else. And it is so powerful. So I guarantee you will see positive effects and consequences from giving for having the self-love. That's one of the principles I embody also, to take care of yourself and to treat yourself in the highest way with the most amount of love. So that's one of the principles also, is self-love.